Last week was our first playoff game, and my plaque psoriasis was so itchy under all my gear. Sometimes just thinking about scratching could take me out of the moment. And then my doctor told me I could get clearer skin with a pill called Otezla.
Otezla apremilast is a prescription medicine used to treat adult patients with plaque psoriasis for whom phototherapy or systemic therapy is appropriate. Otezla can help you get clearer skin after just 4 months.
Okay, ready for the next game. Talking to my doctor about a pill was a total game changer.
Don't use Otezla if you're allergic to it. Get medical help right away if you have trouble breathing or swallowing, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, throat, or arms. Severe diarrhea, nausea or vomiting, depression, suicidal thoughts, or weight loss can happen. Tell your doctor if any of these occur and if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts. Live in the moment. Ask your doctor about Otezla. Call 1-844-4-OTEZLA or visit Otezla.com for prescribing info about cost, and more.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone.
Now, here's Roger Stone.
Welcome back, folks. A lot of disagreement at the debate about the state of the economy today. A lot of disagreement about the state of the economy when Donald Trump became president. When things like this happen, I turn to the most knowledgeable guy I know about the economy. That would be Barry Habib, who is the chief executive officer of MBS Highway. He is a famous American entrepreneur. He may be the country's leading expert on the mortgage and housing markets, but he's also a very shrewd and knowledgeable overall economic analyst. He has won many awards for his extraordinary career in business. He's three-time Crystal Ball winner by Fannie Mae, Pulsenomics, and Zillow for the most accurate real estate forecasts out of the 150 top economists in the United States. He also has a secret life. He was the lead producer and managing partner of Rock of Ages, the 27th longest running show on Broadway. And he joins us now on the Roger Stone Show to try to sort this all out. Barry Habib, welcome.
Roger, thank you so much. Thanks for the kind introduction. And wow, what a great show. I've been listening and just enjoying it so much. I better bring the good stuff because the show is just phenomenal. And on top of that, we get a marinara recipe. It's like everything.
Well, I promised it, and I had to deliver. So here's Joe Biden speaking at the debate.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation.
All right, that's a good place to start. You have been on this show. You helped us dissect the unemployment numbers and the way they have been jiggered to show certain things. But what was unemployment? What was inflation first, and what was unemployment when Donald Trump became president, and how does it compare to today?
So Joe Biden said 6.4%, but what did Bob Uecker say? Missed it by that much? I'm sorry, he said 15%. It was actually 6.4%, so missed it by that much. That was really just a very egregious claim that it was 15%. Then he said the economy was decimated. It was flat on its back. Well, let's remember that this was coming out of 2020. Did something happen in 2020? Was there a forced shutdown of the economy? Did we have to force 20 million jobs to cease to exist for a period of time? Yes, what Donald Trump was doing was building them back, and putting the fact that it was only 6.4% was miraculous. And then Joe Biden also took credit for gaining 15,000 jobs. That's just baloney. All that was the mandatory shutdown that we had was putting those back. In fact, Roger, if you look at it statistically, how about this one? There have been 0 full-time jobs under Joe Biden's watch. 0. All the jobs that he has been part-time jobs and multiple job holders because people are struggling to make ends meet. Under Donald Trump, we put much more jobs in place. But, you asked a few things here. When he talked about inflation, there was no inflation. Well, there was low inflation because there was no crazy spending. We are currently spending, and it's come down, 23% of GDP.
They don't trigger race war and civil unrest
So let's speak to the inflation question, because it is the most audacious. I mean, what people don't understand is that pre-pandemic, we had the greatest rate of job growth, the greatest rate of wage growth, the greatest rate, the lowest levels of unemployment among all Americans, black Americans, white Americans, the urban, rural, young, old. It was really quite extraordinary. And you're absolutely right. The economy was destroyed only because Donald Trump, for the public safety, was forced to destroy his signature accomplishment. But America was already on the way back. This was one of the greatest series of distortions I have seen. Now, Biden keeps insisting we have the most robust economy in our history. What do you say to that?
We don't. There are signs everywhere that we're actually in a recession. The thing of it is, it probably will be called a recession. However, it's the umpire in this is the National Bureau of Economic Research. And what they have to do is they have to go through certain tests over time. And what they always do is you find out you're a recession many, many, many months afterwards. There are lots of my colleagues who are brilliant who say we are in a recession that began in the fourth quarter of 2023. And one of the falsehoods that's out there is the numbers that we get from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, look, I'm not going to necessarily say there's something nefarious going on there. Maybe it is true they're understaffed. But, Roger, let's understand when we get the job numbers on the first Friday of every month, and we're going to get one this Friday, so it's very meaningful. There's a lot of things that we have to remember here. The jobs numbers that we receive from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it is meant to be a snapshot. It's meant to give you a quick look that should be reliable at the state of affairs in the job market. However, the ultimate way that we reconcile this is with the QCEW. So this is the census, the quarterly census of employment and wages, QCEW, quarterly census of employment and wages. Now, they look at 12 million establishments, but because it's so many, it takes time to get the numbers right. Now, Roger, get ready. Just buckle your seatbelts here, because when the BLS said how many jobs were created for the fourth quarter, now it takes time, so we're just reconciling just the fourth quarter. The BLS told us that we had 637,000 jobs. That sounds like pretty good economy. And you get the labor secretary gets out in the White House, look at all the jobs. You get Joe Biden, look at all the jobs. But hold on a second. When we reconcile the numbers correctly, the QCEW says, oops, it's not 637. It's only 116,000 jobs. That's a difference of 521,000 jobs. Now, when they did it for the entire year of 2023, here's what they found out. They found out that the BLS themselves overstated job creations by over 360,000, and that's after the BLS made 2 revisions to the downside. So they overstated it by 600,000. Then they said, oops, yeah, we screwed up. It's only 360. But then the QCEW said, no, guess what? You missed it by another 770,000 jobs. Overall, 1.3 million job overstatement. So we do not have the robust economy. And by the way, when I talk about full-time and part-time jobs, just in the last report, full-time jobs, we lost 625,000. We gained 286,000 part-time jobs. This is the state of affairs here. We have multiple job holders. The economy is under stress. Here's a couple of other things about the state of economy, and I'm sorry to go a little bit long here, but I want to it's important. The only reason we are not in a drop-dead recession is because we are spending 23% of GDP. Now, historically, when do you spend 23% of GDP? It's in crises. Last time we did it, it was during the great financial crisis in 2010, the time before the Gulf War, the time before that, during the debacle that we had in the early 80s when we had a double-dip recession. These are the only times you spend this much. It is out of control. A couple of other quick things, Roger. If we had such a great economy, why are car loans seriously delinquent, meaning 90 days, skyrocketing beyond belief? Why do we have credit cards skyrocketing beyond belief 90 days? The highest levels since 2011 when the unemployment rate was 9%, not 4%. Buy now, pay later, the newest thing. People are using it to pay for their groceries. If you got to use buy now, pay later for your eggs, is this a strong economy? And Roger, the most chilling fact of buy now, pay later is 43% of buy now, 43% are delinquent. If this is such a great economy, why are we seeing these numbers? It only points to one thing. It is not a great economy, and it's likely we're in a recession right now.
Yeah, and when you say buy now, pay later, you're not talking about credit card debt, correct?
That is correct. It is a different format where now you have these companies like Affirm. They allow you to do this buy now, pay later. It's 15% interest, so people are paying through the nose. And what you get for buy now, pay later is you get the ability to pay it over a year, let's just say. It's a short-term type of vehicle where you could pay over a year instead of spending right now. But if I got to spread my milk and eggs over a year, this is not good. This is not good. You have tens of millions of people using this. This is I believe that this is one of the last shoes to drop. This is, people are struggling, and this is what they're using to barely stay afloat in this particular economy that we have.
One of the issues here that I think is a real sleeper in this presidential campaign, Robert F. Kennedy has talked about it, the president has talked about it some, President Trump, and that is the lack of affordable housing. Whether you're buying or whether you're seeking to rent, this issue is being exacerbated by this influx of illegals. So to the extent that there is affordable housing or low-income housing available, it is in many cases going to those who aren't even American citizens. Many of the state laws require states to provide social services to illegals. So we have fiscal crises in cities, towns, counties across the country. But Joe Biden said in the debate yesterday that inflation is caused by corporate greed. Barry, what is causing our current inflation?
Oh my God. Well, okay, there's a lot there, and it's a wonderful question that you ask. So let's try and dissect it quickly because it's deep, but I want to try and make it in a way that people can understand this. So the Fed has kept rates high. We're in a restrictive policy, so it is choking the economy right now, making people suffer more. Pay more for your mortgage, pay more for borrowing money, pay more for your cars, making it much more difficult for people. Why is the Fed doing this? In an effort to choke inflation. However, the debt that we have, which is due to all the spending, those interest payments are now at a higher level. It is about to eclipse the fence because interest rates are high. So that is hurting us and causing more inflation in of itself. But when you measure inflation, what the Fed is looking at, the largest contributor, 43% of core CPI and 21% of core PCE, these are the Fed's favorite measures of inflation, the core PCE is, but CPI we look at too, is something called shelter. Now, shelter is not what you pay on your mortgage. It is rents and owner's equivalent rent. They don't use home prices in this index. Rents are continuously going up in a stubborn manner. If you looked at inflation right now is roughly 2.6% year over year. But that's in addition to all the inflation that we're paying. This is not going down. This is still going up, but it's only going up, giving you more pain by 2.6% on top of everything else. The Fed wants it at 2%. But if you looked at all aspects of inflation other than two items, motor vehicle insurance and shelter account for all but 0.2%. In other words, everything else has come down. But shelter, these rents, are what is propping it up, and motor vehicle insurance. It's stubborn because of theft, and it's stubborn because of all the technology and bumpers. So if you get an offender bender, it's very expensive because you got your park assist, your lane departure, all that stuff, your GPS and stuff like that. So if you don't have all these illegals coming in, driving up the demand for rent, you would have less inflation. So you could say it is two things. It is the border, and it is the spending, which is added to our debt, that is causing the inflation. Now, the Fed has culpability as well, because in 2021, what the Fed was doing is they kept interest rates and quantitative easing way too long. So the Fed has dirt on their hands as well. But really, it is the spending. It was the $1.9 trillion budget buster that was not needed that Joe Biden did with all those initiatives, the misnamed Inflation Reduction Act and the Build Back Better, all these things that have caused this inflation. It's the out of control spending that is what's causing the pain for the individuals. And by the way, one other thing is, so what he is doing is he's hurting the very contingency that he claims to try to be helping, the little guy. And he's the one that's hurting them. And it's all, and by the way, housing is being driven up from lack of supply and too much demand, even at these higher rates. So how does he fix it? More regulation, more pain for builders, higher interest rates so that supply remains constrained, pushing up prices. And then what is his solution? His solution is, let's exacerbate the problem and increase demand by giving out freebies and grants to people trying to buy a home. So what does that do? Increase the pricing. By the way, we saw this playbook in 2010 under Obama. He's taking the same mistake Obama made in 2010, where what Obama said is, here, we're going to give you a tax credit if you buy. Home prices shot up because too much demand. Then when the tax credit expired, home prices dropped, and those poor people that got the tax credit lost more money on their homes and fell victims to foreclosure. Joe Biden is right out of the same wrong playbook right now.
All right, folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Barry Habib, who is one of the country's most respected experts on the mortgage and housing market. He is the CEO of his company, MBS, and we'll be right back with more about this the economy and how it's going to be the deciding factor, I still believe, in this race. Don't touch that dial. Remember, you can always find us at WABCRadio.com worldwide. We'll be right back with more of Barry Habib of MBS Highway. Don't go away.
This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. It's the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back, folks. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC. We are the crown jewel of AM radio. We're talking to Barry Habib, the Chief Executive Officer of MBS Highway, entrepreneur, businessman, author of the Amazon bestseller Money in the Streets. Widely credited with saving the mortgage industry in 2020 from margin calls due to Federal Reserve actions. It was his presentation to the Fed that created stability at a critical time for America. So a man who's been in the room where it happens, as they say in Alexander Hamilton. Barry, I want to ask you this. Late last week, a group, I think it was 15, maybe it was 16, Nobel laureate economists came out and said that Donald Trump's prescription, his plan for the economy, would fire inflation. If inflation's already at 9%, how do you fire inflation when inflation's already been fired? And is this a replay of the 51 intelligence officers who insisted that Hunter Biden's laptop was definitely Russian disinformation? What do you make of this?
It seems like they get these coordinated efforts like you see right after the debate where they rally the troops and they put it out everywhere saying, Joe Biden might have stumbled, but you had the Trump falsehoods. That was their key. But as you beautifully showed, maybe there's some exaggeration on both parts, but Joe Biden certainly had more than his share of exaggerated moments. Now, with respect to this, a couple of things. First, I just want to go back on one thing. There's a point I wanted to make, is that with the unemployment rate now at 4%, we're above the cycle low, which was 3.4 by 0.6%. That's an important economic distinction because every time in our history when that's happened, we are in a recession or within a recession by 2 months. So just that's something that you should bear in mind. I wanted to bring that up in the recession point, but that also ties in here because what I think Donald Trump is trying to do is saying what we've tried in the past isn't working. Let's try some other things. So would a tariff spur some additional ideas? That's the way brilliant breakthroughs occur, is when you have thinking out of the box. Clearly what we're doing is not working. So can we take a look at something like perhaps it's a VAT tax. We don't have a problem with revenue. We have a problem with spending. But if you're saying we want to increase revenue, well, instead of saying people should pay their fair share, why don't we say people should all pay a little bit? Why don't we broaden the tax base? That, in my opinion, is the issue. Because the top 1% that everybody likes to point to, if they were to get demonized the way they are continuously and they stop spending, you'd really seize up the economy. They pay 46% of the tax, top 1%. The bottom 50% pay less than 3% of the tax. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't help people. Of course you should. But perhaps a consumption tax like a VAT tax, perhaps tariffs. Maybe these are ways to say that we can broaden the tax base, look at other ways. And there's so much, by the way, Roger, that was made of the corporate tax breaks that were done. If you looked at the numbers, there's only about 7 or 8% of the overall revenue that comes from corporate taxes. And that was before the reduction in the tax rate. What we just did was made ourselves more competitive so we don't lose to foreign entities and that we don't lose jobs. We don't lose things going overseas. So there's a bigger play here rather than just demonizing and pointing fingers. You know, Donald Trump's trying to play chess where Joe Biden is the old playbook of playing checkers and pointing to things that just would buy votes. It's very disheartening as someone who understands these things to hear them do it. They're very clever and they're very bright on Joe Biden's side to point to these things because on the surface it has appeal until you understand the mechanics of it. And then you can see what Donald Trump is saying. Sure, on the surface, tariffs 10%. Maybe it seems like it could be something that's wild, but maybe it opens the door for ideas that can then grow from that.
Absolutely. Look, we've saw this before. There's no question that the Reagan tax cuts caused a sharp increase in revenues, but the country's problems continued to be massive spending. These across-the-board tax cuts, Biden says Trump cut taxes on millionaires. No, Trump cut taxes on every American. A rising tide lifts all boats. All right, unfortunately, we are out of time. The brilliant Barry Habib, the CEO of MBS Highway. I love this part. Lead producer and managing partner of one of the longest running shows on Broadway, Rock of Ages, which made a movie star into Tom Cruise. Also a producer of Chris Angel's Mind Freak at Planet Hollywood in Vegas. A renaissance man of many, many, many talents. Barry Habib, God bless you and thank you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show.
God bless you, my friend. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
All right, folks, we have jam-packed the show for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. We are very proud to be a member of the 77 WABC network family. There's great programming here, folks, whether it is Sid Rosenberg or my good friend Larry Kudlow, the architect of Donald Trump's, or I should say, the man who executed Donald Trump's vision for the most robust economy in American history prior to the pandemic, bouncing back nicely after the pandemic, or my good friend Frank Morano on the other side of midnight, Dominic Carter. There are so many great voices here. Curtis Sliwa. You don't want to miss any of it, folks. So please go directly to your app store, get the 77 WABC radio app so you don't miss all of it, and stand by for my good friend Joe Piscopo with Sundays with Sinatra.